Baruch Hashem, it's a beautiful morning, and it's the 27th of Shvat, Chaf Zayin, Zach Shvat, and everyone should have a beautiful, clear Geula day. Okay, we are in chapter 20. I think we might hang around a little bit here. We'll do some, at least one Mare Makom that I want to do with you, which will expand a little bit the understanding of the world of Nekudim, Akudim and Nekudim. So we are now between Adam Kadmon and Atzilus. So we are looking at the spheres of Tohu versus the spheres of Tikkun. So we are in that area, right? But first we're going to do the review questions. Number one. What is the difference between the spheres of Olam HaTohu and Olam HaTikkun?
In Olam HaTohu, all the spheres, everything is in a point. The Rut is like different Ritzainates, and there's no Kalim. Like everything is in a point for itself. And very intense. Everything is like 1,000% for what it is, and with absolutely no collaboration or room for anything else to be included with it or within it.
Very good. So in a way, there is a long discussion contrasting with the Mitzvah Rebbe discussion that I was debating to bring it, also in our discussion, but it's like we will get lost in the woods. In a way, the reality of Tohu is very divine. Because Tmimus is Tohu. A Tamim sees everything in its pristine way. It's either, he sees everything in its purest way. There's no negotiation. It's the truth or not the truth. So there is a Maila for the Or of Tohu. It's pure. It's uncompromised. It's the essence without his pashtus, as the Rebbe says. So it's the light in its most authentic form, without composing and considering anyone else and anything else.
So Chana, I always had a question, like I never understood what it meant, like by Shiras HaKelim. Like if the Eibusha created everything originally like this, in Olam HaTohu, and then there was Shiras HaKelim, like what was, like, I don't understand. Hashem didn't know that
you can look at it, Fegi, as two systems operating at the same time. Or Ein Sof, Tzimtzum, Reshimu, Kav, Adam Kadmon, Akudim, Kli Echad, Nekudim, 10 Kelim, but in a way of point, as you're saying. And then we have the 10 spheres of Atzilus. So it's Ishtalshelus, nothing wrong. B'makbil, parallel to that, there is also the Ian of Shviras HaKelim, and the purpose of that is to create klipos. Okay? And that's what creates the klipos in Bia.
The purpose of Shviras HaKelim was to create klipos?
Yeah, we will get there. Yeah, sure. Because what is the klipa? The klipa is when the Nitzot Eloki is fell. What does it mean fell? Died. What does it mean died? Lost its connection with its source. It's so hidden and concealed that it appears like a power and an entity by itself.
So now we're here where we're learning. This is going to be where Shiras HaKelim comes in, because now we have all these very strong lights.
That's in Tohu, yeah. But now we are learning how Seder Ishtalshelus works. We're not discussing Shiras HaKelim now. We are discussing how Olam HaTohu is part of the devolvement of worlds, or evolvement of worlds, depends on where you look. So it's a stage of the concretization of Or Ein Sof into 10 spheres, and then 4 or 3, if you want to say, created worlds eventually.
So in this parallel world that you just described, Shiras HaKelim is going to be somewhere between
Shiras HaKelim is in Tohu, in Nekudim.
In Nekudim.
Yeah. In Nekudim there's nothing to break, there's one Kelim.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more today, B'ezrat Hashem.
Spheros of tohu are aligned in a straight line, one under the other, and the others have a balance of 3 columns.
Very good. So the spheros of Tikkun we didn't mention. We mostly emphasize the spheros of Tohu that operate as nekudos, as points. Now, Rivka Miriam is drawing our attention to the spheros of Tikkun. So how do the spheros of Tikkun look like?
Spheres of Tikkun are in 3 columns.
They're in 3 columns.
In the middle, as
yes.
opposed to the spheres of Tohu that are one under the other.
Okay, 1 line, 3 lines versus 1 line. Okay, what else? What does it mean, really? That it takes the form of...
Only one can be in the position at the same time, like the kings that one had to die before the other could take over.
That's the Tohu.
Again, there isn't a coexistence.
Very good.
In Tohu.
Very good. And in Tikkun, describe to me the spheros in Tikkun.
In Tikkun, you have the inclusion one into the other.
Why?
And because each is composed of the levels of the other.
Very good.
So there's an intensity of focus in the particular named sphera, but there's an inclusion of each of the others, and so they align in this 3 polarity of like Chesed, Gvurah, Tiferet, like middle
like
pole.
in an image of men.
Right, but there is an inclusiveness.
Yes.
And an ability to coexist.
Yes. Excellent.
With opposites also. Also with opposites.
Even
right?
opposites. Yes. Even opposites. Number 2. What are the 2 different kinds of Ischalkus?
One that connects and one that breaks apart. One that does pirud, and one that's the connector so that others can...
because they're all separate, they have to have something of the other to be able to connect, right?
Right.
So that's how they can connect, because they can have, the other are completely themselves, but here they have to have a little bit of the other.
Right.
To be able to do.
Right. So if we are now transitioning from Akudim to Nekudim, we don't know much about them. But where Akudim means are in one, Akud means bind. To get Akedat Yitzchak. Bound in one plea. Now we are breaking it. Ischalkus means there will be Tohu will have 10 spheros. Tohu also has 10 Kelim. But there the 10 Kelim, says Pegi, are separating. Because since each one operates in a manner of nekuda, of like a point, of ketzer, it is just me. And like the way a ratzon desire works, that's it. This is how I want it. So if now we have 10 of them, they can't cooperate because each one operates in the manner of nekuda. Purely itself, no collaboration, as Miriam Briska says. And therefore, that the issue is that there is no inclusion. There is Ischalkus, there is a separation. There is a pirud. And now, since there is a pirud is already shayach to the reality of Shviras HaKelim, which we are not discussing now. Because now we are, as we say, there are 2, you can look at Torah as parallel, there are 2 parallel inyanim. One is the way the Or Eloki has to be channeled and funneled down into Seder Ishtalshelus. And Tohu is the stage. And then the makbil to that, parallel to that, the inyan of Shviras HaKelim, that will create the nitut of the sparks that fell and create a reality which opposes the Elokus, in which the Elokus is hidden and concealed. And we have to elevate and reveal and transform. Okay, that's another discussion. But now we're understanding the system. The system is that from the oneness of Adam Kadmon and Akudim, we didn't discuss much, we mentioned it, but and all in oneness, now it breaks to 10 kelim, so we already has 10 spheros also, as we learned, but each one as a keter, as a point, and therefore there is no collaboration, and therefore, Vayimloch Vayamas, the king reigned and died. They can no collaborate. There's one line, the one ends, the next one can start. It is Halkut. It is division instead of inclusion. Yes. Tohu is Nekudim. Nekudim is Nekudos. Point.
They say they can't be one kelim. They fight. They have to be.
Right. They already. Each one is already declaring their absolute presence. So you have 10 kelim, but that these kelim, the fact that there is Halkut in this case, from Kli Echad or from just Oron Sof, now we have 10. Now these 10 don't cooperate, because each one is in a manner of infinity, of Keter, of a Nekuda that doesn't compromise. It means it doesn't leave room to anything else but purely itself. And therefore it cannot collaborate with the others, and therefore here there is Halkus, the division creates pure separation. Unlike
other manner of Hischalkus is Hischalalos, where there is that inter-inclusion.
Why?
And
why the Hischalkus here creates more? So this is the pattern here. In Atzilus is the opposite. The more Hischalkus, which means the more particularization, the more division, the more pratim, the more details, the more subdivisions, the more what? Hiskalalus.
Or inter-inclusion.
Inter-inclusion. How so?
So that you have basically like an appreciation of diversity, where the multiplicity of different levels of the sphera, combinations of the sphera, are a thing of beauty and appreciated, and one feeds to the other, one boosts the other.
Exactly. One completes the other.
Seen as a,
right. And every diversity is another potential for another relationship, for another yichud, for another beauty, as you call it. That's why the Kaba Emsa Tiferes is the beauty, is the yichud. And as Rochama says, even of opposites. Because the more is Halkus, the more details you have. If you can relate to someone, if someone has one tchuna, one character, either you like it or you not like it. So 50% you might hate that person. But if you see that the person has this and that and that and this, you can easier to find something in common. Because it is a diversity of tchunos, of characteristics that the other person has. If there is diversity, it's easier to relate, because something you'll find in common. Some elements, as it breaks down, if the other person is generally chesed, and that's the only thing you see in that person, and you are gvura, then you can tolerate the person. But if you see that this person is not only chesed, he's also gvura shebechesed, he's also netzach shebegvura shebechesed, and chesed shebegvura shebenetzach shebehod, and you have also kind of more chance that you will find more chance to win the lottery, that you will find a chance to make a yichud, to relate, to unite, and to find yourself in the other person, or to find the other person in you. You see how these review questions, we could have gone hala weiter today, but the review questions are giving us depth. Very good. The hischalkut is in Olam HaTikun. In Atzilus is a kelim merubim, and the task is, as the Rebbe calls it, to bring the infinity and the intensity and the purity and the uncompromised truth of the light of Tohu into the many, many kelim of tikkun. That means that light can be expressed in many, many ways, which means that Or and Sof can be expressed through diversity. It doesn't have to be expressed only in one way. It can be expressed through diversity. And that's a greater kind of unity. Number 3. How are Parzufim created from the spheros of Atzilus? I think we basically covered it. But okay.
It's those combinations.
Yes, the Parzufim are those Yichudim, those combinations between one sphere and the other. So far when we spoke about the difference between spheres of Tohu and spheres of Tikkun, we're talking about the spheres themselves. Now we're talking Parzufim. Parzufim means how the spheres interact between one and another and create unions between one and another. The ultimate Hiskalelus is the vision of Adam. Of the 3 lines as you expressed before, which is the Theo Adam, the way we are composed, and which basically breaks to 248 and 365, altogether 613, and the mitzvahs that we have, Adam HaElyon from Adam HaElyon, and then how we are composed like this, even physiologically, Adam HaTachton. All this is Tikkun. Parzufim, which means how the spheres interact with each other, and how they create unions, to create ultimately one divine body that contains Or and Sof and can reveal Or and Sof. And this is how we are supposed to be. The Adam Mushlam, the complete man of the Ula, is how we, as a human being, are complete, perfect kelim to transmit Or and Sof through our 613 facets. The ultimate Parzuf is Parzuf Adam, the visage of man, which means all the spheres are interacting in such a way that they are perfectly transmitting Or and Sof. That is represented for us, it's represented through mitzvahs.
Also integration, no? Higher integration.
Yes. Higher integration, yes.
Of differences.
Yes. The ultimate expression of oneness through the ultimate diversity. Today you are holding that flag, Rochama, that the ultimate oneness is really when it's the union of the ultimate diversity. At the opposition. That's the ultimate oneness. And this is what Hashem wants to create in Dira B'Tachtonim. That in reality that looks like plurality, that there is no connection between one thing and the other. This world is such a mess. We are supposed to show Basil Legani how it is all to put it all together and see how Or and Sof can be best expressed in this diversity, rather than break down and constantly experience Shviras HaKelim. Number 4, what are Akudim and Nekudim? He didn't discuss it here much, but one thing he said so far, yes, Rivka Miriam?
The Nekudim are the points, and the Akudim are like bands.
So far we know that Nekudim is 10 lights in 10 vessels that operate like points, right? That's Tohu, Nekudim. Nekudim means points. That's what we know about Nekudim, right? And there are 10 lights, 10 vessels, and they operate like points. Each one like a melech. It's going to be my way, no other way. I am the king. Right? 10 lights in one keli. No 10 kelim yet. 10 lights in one keli. The keli is Or and Sof. It's still an expression of divinity. You don't see distinguished kelim yet. It's one keli. We'll talk more today how it is possible. That the Chesed Ha'atzmi, Haba, look in the line Haba. Start with Haba Begilui. The mashal that the Rebbe is giving, it's page Kuf Chaf Daled, 247.
Okay.
247, start Haba Begilui Kalul Miyud. It's like
Yes,
10 lines
right.
from the bottom. The mashal, now we are looking at the spheros, the way they are emerging from the oneness of Or and Sof. Right? In Atzilus there will be distinguished 10 spheros, the way they all break down, the full body is 10 spheros, but now we are in between Or and Sof and Atzilus, so we are in Tohu, which means Nekudos, points, 10 Oros, 10 lights in 10 Kelim, and even higher than that, between Adam Kadmon, and Nekudim, which means Tohu, there is Akudim. Akudim are the way the 10 spheros are bound in one, or bind, in one bound, in one keli, bound with a T or with a D?
D.
Bound in one keli, in one vessel. So, what a mashal? Mashal, how a person who is be'etzem kind. Okay, midas hachesed. And it also has 10, but אין בהם ישחקוס ניכרת אלא כולן בבחיר. Where am I? Which line I told you? הבא בגילוי?
Yes.
So when the chesed ha'atmi, this innate chesed that the person has, let's say, Sfiras HaChesed, takes an example. How a sphera is emerging from Or and Sof, or how a Midah is emerging from the soul, from the essence of the soul of a person. That's the mashal to the nimshal. What's the nimshal? How the spheros emerge from Or and Sof, Lemala. So, let's say this chesed atmi. Person has an innate tchuna, quality of kindness, of chesed. Kalul miyud, when it comes to be revealed, it will be including 10. Which means Ratzon, V'sechel, Umidot, it will have its will and its mind and its midos. אבל אין בהם ישחלקוס ניכרס, אלא כולן בבחינת נקודה אחת. That even though there will be on the level, that level, will be already 10, but at first it will be all in one nekuda. And this, והוא בחינת העקודים, שהעקודים היו בכלי אחד. And that's עקודים in one kli. What does it mean? There are 10, but as we said before, the 10 are not really 10. Why? What are the 10? Let's say the Ratzon, Sechel, Chabad, Chokhmah bin Adat, and the Midos, right? The Midos, the Sechel, starting with the Sechel, it's not really an objective Sechel. It's a sechel that will come to justify the ratzon. So it will not be objective. Even Atzilus, you have an objective sechel. It's a sphere of b'fnei atzma, has its own keli, has its own materials, its own reality. And with the Chabad, I will weigh in my mind, with my logic, I will weigh if something is true or not true, something is I want or I don't want, I like it, I don't like it. In Akudim, it's not like that. There is Chabad there, but the Chabad is only coming to justify, completely bribed, justify the desire. Whatever my desire is, Chabad will come to justify it. And the midos, the love will love it, and the hate will hate the opposite of it, and that's it. There will be no other consideration. So it's as if there is 10, there will be Chabad, there will be midos, but they're all akudim b'kli echad. They are all bound in one vessel, which is the desire. That's it. So the condition of the spheros there, you have 10 lights, which means you have 10 expressions of that will, but really it's in one keli, which means basically this is what I want, and I will think like this, and I will love like this, and I will hate like this, and that's it. No negotiation. It's all the kli echad. They're all in the kli of ratzon. You can say that. That's akudim. ולזה בחינת 10 ספירות לתוהו הם בלתי מסייחדים ומסקללים זה עם זה. And that's what we learn, and that's why so tohu and tikkun, tohu and akudim are very close in some ways. Akudim, which means one keli, 10 lights in one keli, and nekudim, which is tohu, which means 10 lights in 10 kelim, it's a little bit similar because everything is in a point. In Tohu, you already have 10 kelim, and therefore each one will act like a point. In Tohu, you have 1 point. But the principle is the same. So then you'll have the operation of Tohu will be like one under the other. There will be no collaboration. Ze tachat ze, vayimloch vayamat, as we learned. And how will the Rebbe will express it? Like כמו רצון העצמי שבא בגילוי חסד, הגם שכלול בו שכל, לא יתחבר עם רצון עצמי היפוכו, הבא בבחינת הדין. A רצון עצמי פה חסד, which means רצון that wasn't born out of mind, it was born out of the soul. This is what I want. I want to be a kind person. I identify with kindness. Because in Adam Kadmon, I envision myself as a kind person. Okay? So it's not because I made a calculation that kindness is worth it for me. No, it comes from beyond that. So then, if there is Ratzon Atzmi, Sheba Begilui Chesed, even though it will include Sechel. And Sechel, the nature of Sechel is that it's kind of objective and it can even weigh the other opposite opinion and see maybe there's truth in that, No. It will not operate like this. Lo yischaber im ratzon atzmi hipucho, haba b'chinas hadin. So the person, the mentality of a person that is identified with Chesed will not accept the mentality of a person who opposes kindness, who is judgmental in nature. The kind person would not tolerate that approach. הגם שהוא כלול משכל הנוטה בעצם כלפי דין. Even though he also has 10 spheros, and really he has sechel too, and sechel could include the opposite, but אין להם כלי שיוכלו להסתלל בו בית הפכים כאלה. On the level of Tohu, there is no kli that will will collaborate or will merge two opposites כאלה. וכמו שנראה בחוש, מי ששכלו מטה כלפי חסד בעצם, as we see clearly, someone who his mind leans towards חסד בעצם, לא יוכל לסבול בשום אופן למנגדו. There's no way that he can tolerate his opponent, שהוא מי ששכלו מטה כלפי דין בעצם. That means he cannot tolerate one who his mind leans towards always being punitive and being judgmental and being vengeful or being very exact and unyielding, whatever it is. כמחלוקת בשמה ובית הלל. This is like the מחלוקת of בית שמאי and בית הלל, that they are differing בעצם. ובחי גבנה in the likes, דגם שמנגדו יקשה עליו ולא יוכל למצוא טעם, ישתוק אבל לא יוכל להודות ולחזור בו ולהתקלל בדעה שמנגדו כלל. That even in the case that menagdo yakshe alav, that his opponent will question him, and we will present a question that contradicts his opinion, velo yochal limtzo ta'am. And let's say A has his opinion, B presents a question that contradicts A's opinion, and A cannot dispute that. What B presents is a very strong point, and A cannot justify himself anymore. He really logically lost. Nevertheless, he will be silent, but he will not be able to admit that he was mistaken or is wrong, and to retreat his opinion and include himself in the opposite opinion. He cannot do that. He will never identify with the opposite opinion, even if the opponent will prove himself right logically. This is the nature of Mida Atzmis. That's like a Tohu. It's a Mida in its pure sense. It can't include with the opposite. This is Tohu. Aval B'chinas HaTikun, we will go to by the way, going back to footnote 6. Okay? You see footnote 6, few lines, a bunch of lines back. There's footnote 6 that comes after מבחינת העקודים, שהעקודים היו בכלי אחד. How עקודים looks like when the spheros, 10 spheros are bound in one keli. We will go to, eventually, I want to finish this oath to read it together, and then we will go back to Ha'ara 6 from the Alter Rebbe that will open up the understanding about the world of the reality of Akudim. Be'ezrat Hashem. So let's continue where we are. This is Tohu. This is the nature of Akudim and Nekudim. When the spheres cannot cooperate at all with one with the other. Aval Prinat HaTikun. But the reality of rectification. Tikkun also means fixing, putting things together. Hainu כאשר rectifying. כאשר המידה באה מבחינת נקודה שלה להספשטוס חוץ מן העצמיות. רצון ושכל שבה. What is tikkun versus tohu here, the Rebbe says? Tohu is when the midah that does not come out of its nekuda form. Tohu is when the attribute does not come out of its point state, the keter state. That's tohu. Tikkun is kasher hamida ba mibchinas nekuda shela lispashtus, when the midah comes from the state of point now to be expanding. Chutz min ha'atzmiut, outside, to expand out of the essence of Ratzon and Sechel Sheba in this Midah. So now the Midah is operating in a manner of Ispashtus from its essential state. Dehainu, Kmo Midas HaChesed. Now he gives an example. Now we'll see how the different Midos by a person or Sfiros Lemaila are operating in a manner of murkav, of composite, of a composition, because of relating to different factors that sometimes could be opposing, as Rochama says. That's the world of tikkun, when we bring everything into consideration and make room for it, and therefore make a decision that includes all factors, all sub-spheros. So let's see. We know already that in Tohu, each sphere operates in its Nekuda form. So even if you have 10, if you have Seichel, the Chabad, the Chochmah will be in its Nekuda form. The Bina will be in its Nekuda form. The Chesed will be in Nekuda form. Every sphere will be, every part will be in its Nekuda form. Nothing is operating in a manner of Ispashtus from its essential state. That's Tohu. Tikkun is how each one operates in a manner of coming out of its essential state. But it means now it will start to gauge and interact and collaborate with others, even opposing spheres. Dehainu, Kmo Midas HaChesed. An example. Kindness. כאשר ייוולד, next page 248, הרצון ושכל להטות כלפי חסד לזולתו, מצד שעשה לו טובה, ולא מצד בחינת עצם הטוב וחסד, הבא בגלוי בהכרח מטבע הטוב שבאצליוס הנפשו, אדרבה, יוכל להיות אכזרי בטבע. ולמי שחננו והצילו ממוות וחי גבנה, ירצה להיטיב ויתס לכלוא עליו תמיד לחסד וזכות וכולו. Let's say you have someone who is not kind. In fact, he tends to be cruel, not a nice person. But somebody saved him once or twice, did a favor to him. And therefore now, the will and the mind of the cruel person, person A did a toiva to person B. Person B is not a kind person, But because person A did a toiva to person B, now person B, who is not a kind person, says, well, every time I think of this person, I want to do something good to him because he saved me. He did me a favor in the past. And my mind says that it's the right thing to do. So yatel lechesed. So person B will look to you like a nice person. He's doing all this kindness to person A. Really, person B is not that nice. But now his niceness can contain also niceness. Because it's a murkav, it's composed. His midat adin is now including midat chesed. Why? Because his seichel that understands, and even beyond the seichel, his ratzon in his mind and his will was affected by the fact that person A did a favor to him, did a favor to him. So now it's not pure din or pure chesed anymore. Now it's composed. His midat adin, his midat of not kindness, is now includes also kindness. But this kindness is not chesed atzmi. His atzmi doesn't have chesed, that type of chesed. If you want to have an expression atzmi to him, he's more judgmental, and he will weigh very carefully if one deserves it or not. He will not lean to kindness. And really, mitzad his mitzad his nature, he wouldn't even be kind to the person who did him a favor. If he were in a state of tohu. You did me favor, did me favor, doesn't matter. I don't go out of my essential state. My essential state is I don't give. Finish. In a serious I can come out of my essential state, my pure state. I can break down to I have chesed and I have gvura shebechesed. I have gvura and I have chesed shebegvura. I have gvura, but you did me chesed, so I can have chesed shebegvura. I will do. My mind always be kind to you. My will always be kind to you. It's now harkava. It's now composition. Mitzad shatara tova. Yeah. So, because he is a mitzichonan, even though Yachzari beteva, third line, he's beteva, is by nature a cruel person, ולמישחננו ביצילו ממוות בחיים מבוות וחי גבנה יוצא לאיתי ויעשה שכלו עליו תמיד לחסד ולזכות. However, someone who saved him from death and something like that, he will always want to do good to him, and his mind will always be favorably judging him, and will want to take a stand that will always favor that person that saved him. וחי גבנה, שזה נקרא חסד וטוב המורכב. This is called chesed and goodness that is composed, מורכב, compound, ולא חסד פשוט ועצמי שמצד הטבע כלל. It's not anymore a pure, essential chesed that comes from his nature. It is a calculated chesed that is composed out it's like grafted upon his really natural unkindness. Let's put it this way. וחי גבנה יובן בהיפוכו במידת הדין המורכב להטות רצונו ושכלו כלפי חוב. And the same thing, you can see a person who is really בעצם kind, is a nice person, but you see that he's acting במידת הדין, that his mind is always leaning unfavorably to his enemy that did him bad. He hurt him, he damaged him. עשה לו רעה הרבה. If the person that did him a lot of evil, that this kind person, גם שבעצם טבעו הוא איש חסדן ורחמן, even though in his nature he is a kind person, he is a merciful, compassionate person, nevertheless, he will always will be judging negatively and leaning towards negative approach and stand towards the person that hurt him. How come? You're a nice person. How come? Oh, but this person hurt me so much that whenever I think of him, I cringe. בעצם, really what you can say is in a Nekuda state, it can be only a black or white. It can be only chesed or only din. And in Ispashtu state, in Tikkun state, it could be all kinds of combinations between chesed and din. So you can understand that there could be a combination and then a composition of many ways, the way the midos and the spheros are interacting and blending with each other. So I can be a person who is kind, and sometimes I act in a firm way, and I can be a person who is firm and judgmental, and sometimes you see me doing kindness, and the proportions could be all kinds of proportion. How much of this, how much of that? Kama minei ofanim shonim, myriads of ways, very different from one, different from the other. Diversity. Lefi ofen davar shemokav bo hamidot. According to the object and the subject that the midos are involved in. Kemo ava v'sinah tluim badavar. Like love or hate that are caused by something. They are not asked me, they are caused by something that happened. And you can even come to the point that you can find in one person or in one thing something. The mitzido echad ya'avenu v'yeh rotzono v'sichlo hakol letov v'chesed ומצידו השני, מצידו הבייס, באותו הדבר עצמו, ישנאנו, ויתר רצונו ושכלו לרע ועונש. עד שיוכל להיות בחינת ממוצע, כלול מחסד וגבורה יחד. So you can have one thing that if you look at one side of it, it makes you think positive. And if you look at the other side of the same thing, you will think negatively about it. And therefore, you can create one kind of another combination between these two opposites. For instance, he gives an example. In one thing, you can see two opposites. Al Shaul. Hashem's attitude, Hashem's feelings towards Shaul, King Shaul. Shehemis et hagivonim. Ve'ad sheyuchal, until, so we have these two opposites, until yuchal yod b'chinas memutza, until there will be something in between, kalul mi chesed u'gvura yachad, that will include both chesed and gvura. And here's the examples, three of them, I think. כמו שכתוב, it says, באשר משפטו שם, this is in Spania, one of those little Nevi'im, short Nevi'im in the Tanakh. Let me see, number 12. You see, page 248, Kuf Chav Dalet, number 12. Let's see. Spania, Beis Gimel. Spania, chapter Gimel, Beis, chapter Gimel. Ba'asher mishpato sham, what does it mean? That Hashem was judging Shaul not favorably. Why? Al Shaul. Why did Hashem judge Shaul? Shehemis et hagivonim. Because Hashem was upset that Shaul killed the Givonim, because he thought that they were supporting David, and because of that he murdered or killed Givonim in the city of Givon, and Hashem was very upset at him. And at the same time, Hashem was upset at the all other people that did not mourn Shaul properly. And therefore he was upset at the people. On one hand, he was upset at Shaul that he killed the Givonim, and on the other hand, he was upset at the people that didn't mourn. After all, he was a king. And therefore, even though he killed the Givonim, but he was a king, you had an obligation to mourn a king properly, and you didn't. And therefore, Hashem was at the same time upset. He was upset at Shaul, and at the same time supporting Shaul and defending Shaul's dignity by being upset as the Shaul was not eulogized properly. Davar v'hipucho ke'echad. You can find in one thing two opposites. וכן also, Hashem's attitude to Shlomo, King Solomon. כשנשא שלמה בת פרעה. When Shlomo married the daughter of Paro, and he married many women, and Hashem wasn't happy with it. על זה אמר כי על אפי. I am furious. It's done al api, in spite of my charonaf, of my anger. And at the same time, Shir Hashirim ne'emar al simchat binyan Beit HaMikdash. The whole Shir Hashirim is about the joy of the building of Shlomo HaMelech. What pleasure and joy he gave to Hashem for building Beit HaMikdash. וכמו שכתוב ביום שמחת ליבו, the day of the joy of the heart of Hashem. כי שמחה וחרון אף דבר והיפוכו כאחד, because the joy and the anger, one thing opposite the other, come together in one thing at one time. וכן, also something that applies to all of us. I mean, all these examples apply to all of us because the Melech includes the whole nation. We are part of the Melech. But here it says specifically in Bereshis, ki yetzer leva in Noach, ki yetzer leva Adam ra. So Hashem says that the yetzer of leva Adam, the inclination of the heart of human is bad, and therefore the first thought of Hashem says, let me destroy them, because I see they're no good. From childhood they're no good. What's the point? Let me destroy them, bring the Mabul, bring the flood. And then at the same thought, cause the opposite. Cause the decision, I'll never bring the flood again. Why? Ki yetzer lev adam ra minu ra. Because what do you want from them? You place the yetzer ra right from the time they are shaken out of the belly of their mother. You place the evil inclination in them. So you want to destroy them because sometimes you see evil in them? Doesn't make sense. And therefore Hashem decided, you know what? Yes, they are struggling with the Yetzer Hara, and I cannot be, total kind of judgmental and say, well, if they are evil, I'm going to destroy them, because I can find justification that for the same reason I should not punish them, because it's embedded in them that they have a Yetzer Hara, and therefore I should not be so punitive. And I should understand that sometimes they fail, and therefore I'll never bring a Mabul anymore. I will never bring a collective, universal punishment of this kind of destroying the world. So you see that one reality can bring two opposite responses. ומתחילה אמר וירא השם כי רבה רעת האדם וינחם. First Hashem said he saw how much evil human beings contain, and he regretted, וינחם, he regretted that he created them. כמו שכתוב במקום אחר אצל הסבר, שזהו מבחינת המידות, the תיקון, and then he said, and then later on, it doesn't bring the opposite that Hashem said, it actually brings it before, and then came the Yetzer Lev Adam Ra, that because the Yetzer Lev Adam Ra, I'm not going to punish them because they have Tov and Ra in them, and it's not their fault. Shezeu, to be able to consider two opposite points of view like this, and to accept both, because really they both make sense. It makes sense that you want to, mitzad tohu, it makes sense that mitzad truth, if you want to have a pure, godly, divine world, you have no room for evil people, and therefore destroy them. Makes sense. At the same time, you can totally accept a consideration of tikkun that says, well, you can't be so punitive because they have evil in them. They were created like this. They didn't make it up. They were created with evil in them that they have to handle. So how can you be, every time you see evil, you're going to be devastated and you're going to destroy them? The world cannot stand like that. Nothing can stand like that. That's tikkun. שזהו מבחינת המידות לתיקון שהם בבחינת מורכבים. The midas of tikkun are composed of different elements, sometimes of opposing elements, and they have to create an inclusion of all, a memutza, an inclusion of all. Dehainu b'ispashtus davar. That can only happen when there is a state of ispashtus of the midah or the sphera from its essential point state. Shelo mitzad ha'atzmius levad. When the sphera operates not only from its essential state, rather from its pashtus, from a expansion from this essence of the sphera that can consider all kinds of different facets and opposing elements. Yuchal liyot iskalelus davar v'hipucho. So when the sphera or the midah comes out of its essential point, then there can be an inter-inclusion of something and its opposite. V'hainu b'chinas nekuda detohu, degam keshena'asa b'ischalkus leyud, ein zo rak sphira velo parsuf adam. So when the point of tohu, even though it also is divided to yud, every sphera of tohu also is divided to 10. It has its chad moyachrin, it has its midos. Ein ze rak sphira. Nevertheless, in Tohu, everything exists only in a manner of sphira, not parsuf. There is no inter-inclusion between one sphera and the other. Each sphera is by itself as a point. Velo parsuf adam. It's not an image of a man that you have the right hand and the left hand, the right leg and the left hand, and the torso in the middle, and they all work together as one unit. That you don't have there. Lo parsuf adam. The middles are not interacting. The right hand is operating only by itself, never operates with the left, and the left hand is totally by itself. And when the right hand only moves when the left hand finishes moving, and so on and so forth. That's in Tohu. In Tikkun, this parsuf adam should be b'chinas iskalelus mikol ha'apachim. In Tikkun, you have a parsuf adam. Adam, one person, can include totally opposite elements, opposite energies, opposite qualities. The organs of the body can have, each one can have different elements, sometimes opposing each other, and so on, but they're all working together. Ela b'chinas hatikun dafka, like the brain, or the two parts of the brain. One is cool, one is warm. They're all different, but they're working together as one Adam. Ela b'chinas hatikun dafka. Only in Tikkun, all the spheres can work like as one person, Adam, inter-inclusion. Shekol nekuda ba b'ispashtus chutz me'atzmiyusa. Every point, every sphere comes out of its point essential atzmiyus state and spreads out. She'az miskalelim al yedei ribui ha'kelim mikelim shonim. The spreading out means many kelim. Through the myriads of kelim, all kinds of expressions, diversity, shemurkavim bahem. That then the different spheres are each sphere are now composed of different kinds of powers and elements, even opposing. Vedal, and it's enough. What was said is enough to stop and contemplate on all this and reflect on it. וזה מה שכתוב בספר יצירה, טרף אש ומים ובללן זה בזה. And this is what it says in Sefer Yetzirah. It's alluding to Olam HaTikun, that Hashem mixed fire and water and mixed them together. Dehainu b'chinas hamurkab de'esh u'mayim. The murkab, the composition of fire and water, dafka, opposite elements, chesed and gvura, or gvura and chesed, velo be'etzem mautan. It's not the way gvura and chesed are in its in their essential state. It's the way each one makes room for the other, and now each one compromises a little bit. כמו שכתוב מקום אחר באריכות, as it says elsewhere at length. So in Yirtzeh Hashem, next time we will go back to footnote 6 that will give us more understanding of before Tikkun. The next stage, Ois Chaf Aleph, we will dive into the world of Tikkun, of Atzilus. But I want to spend a little bit more time about Atzilus, if you don't mind, and that we'll do through footnote 6 which will take us to the Alter Rebbe, who will teach us about the inyan of Akudim and Nekudim. Bezos Hashem.